So it's very interesting that we can be in this room together, but all of it's been a thought, every bit of it. So I don't think anybody in here anymore is taking the details for granted or feeling lazy to, or like, you know, burdened by doing the work, because actually that's the part that makes you go, you know what, this was worth it. I mean, Chloe, you're a dancer, you know, like, you know how to do the steps, but putting together a combination is a whole other fucking story. And you don't just put it together and you're done. You know, there's like grinding it into your body. So it lives in there. Then it becomes a dance you can do all the time, or a combination you can add to another combination. That's what we're doing here as actors. We're creating like combinations. May, you have a timid question.
So you were saying a few things that prompted me to think about something about improv. So you know how Andrew does this thing where he's so specific with his improv. He can just say, "Oh, I'm going to Nathan's hot dogs" or whatever, or like he'll just have all these words coming out of his mouth. And I mean that's Andrew, but I was just wondering, like, I can't do that. I don't have those words.
You can, and you will. And I will tell you this also. Everybody doesn't get to do what everybody else does. You know, if that's Andrew's thing, that's Andrew's thing. I had another student years ago, my friend Kim Hamilton, and she had the original, she was like the OG for like a conscious stream of thought, where just words would come out of her mouth and she would say an endless sentence that we had no idea from where she started that she would end up where she ended up. It was one of her gifts, something she does. That's, you know, I think that this is such important content that I'm providing right now. So one of the things you guys have to do, and this is like special to hear, is you have to stop coveting other people's gifts. However, it's okay if that's something that resonates for you. You're like, you know, I want to be able to do that. Then apply for that job within your own repertoire of opportunities. Delia used to do this thing where no matter what, she'd walk into the room and she would turn to the audience, in the direction of the audience, but never saw the audience. It was like, why do you have a picture of yourself naked on a bearskin rug? Like a poster. You know, she would create these things out on the fourth wall that we didn't have to turn around. We almost wanted to turn around and look, but she created so vividly on her fourth wall that Matt's like, that's something I want to do. So he made it his business in improv all the time to come in and create his fourth wall before he did anything else. That was something he did. So you're thinking, look, May's a little perplexed. She goes, so how can I get words to come out of my mouth fast? How do I apply that trick?
It's like specific vocabulary I don't have.
Vocabulary. It's his vocabulary. You know, some people are great with script. Can you take direction is far more important. You know, you look at somebody like, let's think of somebody who's a famous actor that morphs into their roles. They used to talk all the time about how Meryl Streep just disappeared into her roles. Dustin Hoffman disappears. I don't know that there's a lot of young. Leonardo DiCaprio was a kid when he did What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and he played a full-on, like, pretty severely mentally challenged kid. People didn't know who he was. And they were like, how'd they get that retarded? This is what they said back then. This was like in the 80s. How'd they get that retarded kid to do all that stuff? Because he was so believable. Not everybody wants to do that. Sylvester Stallone plays the same exact character, movie after movie after movie after movie, and we love him, because that's what he does. You know, Julia Roberts tried to play, I forget what that movie was. She was like a Red X or something. And nobody wanted to see her being miserable and ugly. They're like, Julia Roberts is beautiful. We'd like to see her. We'd rather see her as a hooker, you know, than a nun. They just didn't want to see it. You know, you guys have the option right now. You can pick your range, and then you can keep capitalizing that and keep growing and keep growing and keep growing. Conscious stream of thought is a specific thing, but it's not everybody can do it in improv. I can tell you in one hand who does that with this girl, Kim, Andrew, and sometimes Mickey. It's a very interesting, it has to do with how he thinks. So he may have a lot of chatter in his head that he might need some help with in his real life. You know? Andrew, if you hear this, I'm saying you need a doctor. It's just something he does. There comes a point where the multitasking becomes a lot easier. It just gets easier and easier and easier because it just does. It's like driving, you know? I mean, when you first start driving, you got to get in the car. Then you got to put the seatbelt on. Then you got to adjust the rear view mirror and the side view. Then you got to fix this thing and that thing. Then you put it into gear. And then you have to put your foot on the brake. And then you have to, I mean, it's so specific. Now I get in the car. If somebody else was in the car before me and the seat's too far back, I'm literally taking off while I'm pulling the seat up and fixing the mirror while I'm pushing on. And in the old days, I'm putting on mascara while I'm checking the radio and lighting a cigarette. I mean, how does that happen? Because certain things become, they end up in our body. They end up in our body. So I would say if you want to do that, part of it, as it occurs to me in this moment, since you've asked, May, is to say to you, how about you just let go and you let the real thoughts that are going on in your mind dictate what you say, instead of the ideas where that other voice in your head is going, don't say that, that's stupid, or that won't work. How do you know? But for you, May, if you want to do conscious stream of thought, you have to shut that other voice up, and you may not even be aware of it, but it might be there. It might be there. Let me ask you something. How many of you have sometimes this thing, whether you're going to sleep or you're like trying to concentrate on something else, and this other thing keeps coming, like you're writing a letter to a person that you're mad at or something in your mind, and it just keeps replaying itself, and you can't stop it. Like I have an issue with somebody right now that I just need to let them know what's going on. And I'm writing a letter. I'm like, oh, just put it on paper already. I'm like, fuck it. I don't have the time. I don't care. I don't want to write to her. I'll have to have a phone call with her. And then I'm like, oh, I don't have time for the phone call. And then the chatter starts again. And I'm writing this. Those are the thoughts. And no matter how much I try to shut it down, it won't shut down. I've only been able to empty my mind under very, 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 very specific circumstances, when I've already spent almost 2 weeks meditating, like in the Amazon jungle, where it's almost like my brain and life has been erased because I'm far away. It takes a lot when we're living in every day where we're being stimulated. But we may not be aware of that voice that's shutting us down. And it's not leaping into action a lot with you anymore, May, because I do think a lot of your stuff is very uncensored. But you might be surprised if you let even the most absurd things just come out of your mouth because they're going through your mind. Not everybody has the skills that other people have, and that's what makes us all so special. I think in terms of like, own the things that make you great and special, and if there's something that you're coveting, think about how you can put that into action for yourself. And don't be in a big hurry. Anything worth anything can take a little bit of time. Anything worth anything.